or it's not a problem, or my partner just doesn't want to hear it. So either way, no matter how many times we talk about it, nothing seems to change and I don't know what to do. If that's you, then this video is designed to support you. 'Cause after all, when darkness falls, what do we have except you and me? Underneath the messages from the frustrated spouses that I hear, the messages are usually the same 4 questions. Should I give up on my partner? Is there hope for our relationship? What can I actually do to help my partner or even help our relationship? And underneath all of this, the questions are, am I making things worse? Today, I want to give you a framework for what you're dealing with as the partner who doesn't have an active addiction, but is supporting somebody who's either addicted to drugs or alcohol. And I want to talk to you about what this is, not just emotionally, but clinically. And I also want to explain to you why you pushing or confronting and pleading with your partner isn't a character flaw, but it's a predictable response to a very specific kind of pain and problem that in couples work we see quite often, and in drug and treatment rehabs they see very often. This won't be one of those just take care of yourself or just leave them videos, that run-of-the-mill advice that you're used to getting from friends, family, or even Google searches. Instead, you deserve real insight, deep empathy, and a clear understanding of what's actually happening in your relationship, what you can do, and some empathy and understanding about what you're going through. Let's start with something that is really uncomfortable to talk about first: addiction. When most people hear that, they picture something really extreme. The word addiction tends to conjure up an idea of someone who can't function, who's asleep all day, or can't take care of their bills, their kids, or is unmarried, or homeless, or somebody who's completely destitute. Yet, on a frequent basis, I work with high-functioning addicts or alcoholics, and they downplay the severity of their issue because they're functioning. And unfortunately, when someone is able to maintain a job, maybe have a relationship, have kids, they can downplay the severity of their addiction because they have a common lens of addiction being something that is mostly reserved for people that are shooting up hardcore drugs or unable to keep a job or pay bills. And yet, addiction strikes in all kinds of places, and even people who are high functioning and have quite a bit going on in their life, they can still be addicts. So we want to change the foundational understanding of what addiction is for you as a support partner, and what addiction is for the partner who is actively utilizing drugs or alcohol or something else as a way to medicate and take care of themselves while it's actually negatively impacting their relationship. So here's a reframe for you that's really important, whether you're the active addict or the alcoholic or the partner supporting your partner. Addiction in clinical environments, we use a psychosocial model to describe addiction. Very simply, what that means is we're looking at the biology, psychology, and the relationship context all at once. We're not defining alcohol addiction or drug addiction by one simple lens. Instead, we're using a very different lens to define addiction, such as the frequency, the impact, and the compulsion. In the official manual that's used by therapists and counselors, the DSM-5, which is the manual used by clinicians, they describe alcohol disorder on a spectrum. One key domain is social and interpersonal impairment, the criteria being continued use despite persistent problems in the relationship. In my opinion, that deserves repeating, because when we're looking at addiction through this lens, we're talking about continued use despite knowing that it's causing problems, despite seeing that it's hurting your friends, your family, or your spouse, your partner. And in the clinical work, we're not just looking at frequency, we're looking at the impact. And in my work with couples, I say it even more simply. If one partner experiences the use of alcohol or something else is a problem in their relationship, then it is a problem. The question isn't whether it meets some sort of threshold or someone's opinion of what addiction is. The question is, does your relationship hurt because of this? Can your relationship survive with you or your partner continuing in this pattern? So what we really need to talk about is the signs. And the first sign is minimizing and the small lies. A lot of times partners with active addictions say, I only had 2, or I only had 3, or I only do it on the weekends, or it's just alcohol. But it's not just alcohol. It's about somebody trying to manage shame at the cost of someone else's reality. Your partner, oftentimes, the first sign that they have an active addiction or alcohol problem is that they lie and they minimize the impact. The second warning sign that someone has an active addiction is how they do it. And a lot of times, partners with active addictions hide it. Maybe you've seen that your partner hides bottles around the house, or drinks when you're not around, or tries to tell you they haven't had a drink when you can clearly smell it on their breath. And this is a concern, right? Because the things that we hide are generally not things that we're proud of. They're things that we're afraid to admit or things that we're ashamed of. And we hide the things that we don't feel good about, or the things that we worry that the people around us might not really like hearing. The third warning sign that your partner is most likely an addict is that they mix other substances or other medications with alcohol. And that means it's not just recreational, it's about regulating, it's about self-soothing, it's about self-medicating, it's about managing emotions that they can't manage without some sort of drug or medication, but they won't go and get the help and support. Instead, they self-medicate with alcohol. Now let's talk about what I call the GABA glutamate loop. And what this is that your partner drinks to manage stress and they're self-medicating. In our brains, there are these chemicals or hormones, if you will, and they're called GABA. And what they do is they calm us, relax us. But when somebody has a lot of anxiety, frustration, or pent-up emotion, or shame even, then they use alcohol as a short-term solution. And alcohol, it acts like the brain's brakes, something to kind of pause or halt that anxiety to calm the nervous system. In the short term, alcohol or drugs can work, but when the substances wear off, the brain swings in a different direction, and the anxiety spikes, the stress spikes, and the need to regulate starts all over again, and that anxiety increases. It actually becomes even worse, so naturally your partner drinks again to kind of quiet those tense, frustrated emotions. And I wouldn't say that this is weakness. This is neurobiology. The brain has literally reorganized around the substance or the need for that substance to try to calm and soothe something that it can't do without it. So without realizing it, your partner is drinking and at the same time fueling the very anxiety that they're trying to escape. Another common reason that somebody will go to drugs and alcohol is to try to deal with co-occurring disorders such as anxiety or depression. It's extremely common that if somebody is self-medicating, they're self-medicating something that needs a different type of treatment. But instead, what they do is they just go to drinking. Here's something that doesn't get named enough as well. When your partner drinks to regulate, you, the supportive partner, often become a part of that regulation system. So you end up managing the environment. You end up staying silent. You end up trying to make up for the things that your partner is doing, and you absorb the tension. You calibrate the mood. You calibrate the moments, and that becomes codependence. I've seen this a lot with partners who are not the ones who are having the addiction problem, but they're the ones who are supporting their partner through it, or instead repressing the frustration that is caused by their partner not getting help. So what do? They try not to tell friends and family about it. They hold the stress internally so that their partner doesn't look bad. They sometimes try to skirt the kids away so that kids don't see mommy or daddy in this state, or they try to leave events early or try to avoid certain events. And so you, as the supporting partner, become the one that's absorbing all that tension, all that frustration, and all that silence is being held inside you. And at some point, it's bound to cause both of you pain. Not just the partner who's drinking and ignoring the signs or ignoring your pleas, but you, as the supportive partner, are the one who's suffering as well. All this management that you're trying to do, it's not an attachment response. It's a nervous system that has learned that proximity means you need to be vigilant. You need to keep things stable. If you're near your partner, you need to be hyper aware. You need to regulate the situations. And sadly, what happens as you're doing all this support is that you become a regulation strategy. You become somebody that needs to support and almost self-erase or forget about your own feelings and needs. And that creates a certain kind of confusion between your partner and you as the regulator. And it's one of the most disorientating things about loving somebody with an active addiction. I want to speak to the part of you that is exhausted and frustrated and tired of confronting, pleading, and asking your partner to change and hoping that maybe this time, maybe this conversation, it will finally land. I know that you've been doing this, and I know that you've been running around in this loop where you keep trying to get your partner to change, and it's not you being naive, it's you being hopeful that maybe something will work. But inside of that, there's also something else happening, and it's your partner has ambivalence. Your partner isn't always in full denial. More often than not, they're actually split. Part of them knows, and part of them isn't ready for what change would cost and for what change would mean. In motivational interviewing, we call this the righting reflex. That's your natural urge to fix the problem. We all have this urge. But when somebody's ambivalent, that instinct backfires. The more that you push, the more they pull back. What looks like stubbornness is actually self-protection. When someone isn't ready to change, confrontation doesn't create readiness. Unfortunately, it creates defense and stubbornness. And this isn't because your partner is trying to be difficult. It's because how the psychology of ambivalence and addiction work together. In the research on behavior change, there's a model called the stages of change. Your partner, in their addiction journey, may be in the pre-contemplation stage. They haven't connected their drinking yet to the problem. Usually, that's not permanent, but quite often it means the conversation that you're trying to have isn't the one that they're ready to have with you yet. A lot of partners eventually get to a place where they say, "Get help, I'm leaving," and it's understandable. But there's something important to know about how ultimatums land when someone is in that pre-contemplation phase. If you don't mean it yet, don't say it yet. Because these ultimatums, when you don't follow through on them, they don't create pressure. They teach your partner that your limits don't hold, that you don't really mean it. And that makes the next conversation a lot harder to have and not easier. So these ultimatums are only as strong as your willingness to act and follow through, which brings us to something nobody wants to talk about. If you've been having the same conversation over and over and nothing changes, this is why. Because the very thing that you're doing out of love and out of fear and out of hope may actually be strengthening their defenses. When one partner has a problem with alcohol, it doesn't just affect them, it reorganizes the entire relationship. You get pulled into it. In many ways, it's like a demand-withdraw cycle. You bring it up, they pull away. You chase and pursue the conversation, they stonewall, shut down, or minimize. You push for accountability, they minimize again, or you go on the offensive and it goes deeper. You're not just noticing the smell of alcohol. You're tracking the baseline of who your partner is, the way that they move, the way that they act, the way that they speak, the subtle shifts in tone or facial movements. And if something feels off before even a single word is spoken, you've learned to read the room, to read the signs or patterns faster than you can even explain it. That's what we call hypervigilance. Your nervous system learned to scan for threat because the environment became unpredictable. Because it's traumatic to be in a relationship where somebody is lying to you or hiding things from you. To be in a relationship where addiction overrides health and the relationship, it makes you hypervigilant, so your system adapts. And this isn't you being controlling or manipulating. This is your attachment system trying to protect you from another time that you're lied to, another time that you're hurt, another time that your partner hides something that could actively hurt you, your family, your business, or something else, what's happening is a chronic trust rupture. Not one big moment, but many small ones with some large ones, all compounded over time. Hidden bottles, minimized mornings, broken agreements. Over time, that adds up. You, the person who should feel safe, you don't. And the partner who you should feel safe about starts to feel unpredictable. Now you're in the house, in the same bed, in the same life, and yet you feel completely alone. You feel like you're suspicious of them. You're not completely sure what to trust anymore. One of the questions that I get asked a lot about this particular dynamic where one partner is an active addict and the other one isn't, a lot of partners will ask me, does couples therapy work? And I say, yes. Does couples coaching work? Yes. But there's nuance to this here. The sequence and the steps that you take really matter. You can't repair the relationship while the alcohol or drug addiction is actively causing damage and still hidden and not talked about. In my work with couples, I use a no secrets framework. The drinking, it has to come into light and we have to talk about it. And we have to talk about the impacts of the drinking. Couples where one partner's substance use is kept as a secret show significantly worse outcomes. The secrecy isn't just emotional. It prevents repair, it prevents the ability for closeness and intimacy, and starts to impact your ability to make promises or trust anything. So what works best is parallel support, not just individual support or couples therapy, but both at the same time. We want relational work for both of you, for the relationship and for you as individuals. That might look like therapy or outpatient for the partner who has the active addiction. Meanwhile, the partner who is in the support space might need their own therapist as well. In this work with couples, there's also an approach called CRAFT. It's one of the most researched models for helping resistant partners enter treatment. And in my near 20 years of working with couples, the partner who has the active addiction needs to have their own treatment to specifically address their addiction while also doing couples therapy to talk about the underlying pain or stresses or frustrations or lack of skills that make the relationship work well. But the two need to go hand in hand. You can't just do couples work and you can't just do treatment work. But if I had it my way, the partner who has the active addiction would do treatment. That would be the hierarchy. Treatment first, couples work second. If you can do both at the same time, fantastic. If you can't and you have to pick, treatment is my number one choice. If you've been actively monitoring your partner, their moods, their drinking, or what they're doing, or what they're saying, or where they're at, then I want to talk to you directly, because being in this cycle or this pattern means that you've been carrying something that was never meant to be yours alone, and yet that's likely how you feel. At some point, it feels like you became their therapist, their accountability system, their consequence holder, their manager, and the person who's responsible for the relationship. And somewhere along the way, your nervous system stopped being your own, and your ability to be a partner stopped because you couldn't be close to your partner anymore. And in short, that becomes some sort of enmeshment under pressure, and it's not sustainable. You can't be the only person that's naming the problem or noticing it and carrying the burden by yourself. Not because your voice doesn't matter, but because when you're the only voice, it stays inside a relationship argument instead of becoming something that you and your partner work on together, and something that your partner faces internally and listens to you and listens to your guidance as somebody who loves and cares about them. What that usually means is that you're not going to be the person who carries this alone anymore. Instead, you can recruit support. You and your partner can do couples work so that you're not the only person holding the clinical or managerial space, and instead you can let go and talk about how you feel and be supported in that process, so that you can begin to trust what your body knows and have someone support you, so that you can stop thinking that you're crazy and instead feel your feelings and talk about them and know that they're real and they're valid. What couples work can do is it will allow you to name what's happening and support you in holding a boundary. Couples work can teach you how to be clear about what isn't working without attacking your partner, but still naming it clearly. You don't have to carry all of this alone. And in my experience as the support partner, you are used to holding the room, the space, and the relationship, the parenting, mostly alone. Couples who engage in both individual and relational support do better. The data, the research is really clear about this. If both you and your partner are willing to do the work, then this history and the current status of your relationship doesn't have to define your future. It doesn't have to be the future that you live into, but it all starts with your partner, you, and you two as a couple getting the right support. I want to say one more thing, and I want to say it really carefully because I know this is likely on your heart and mind. There may come a point where you feel like you've done everything. You've named it, you've held boundaries, you've sought support, you've given it time, you've reflected, you've chased, you've yelled, you've given up, you've become hopeless, you even hired experts, and then your partner still hasn't moved, hasn't really sought the support or done the right effort. Then I want you to know there may come a time where you feel like you have to leave the relationship. If that happens, leaving doesn't mean that you gave up. Leaving means that you made a decision about your health, your life, and maybe that of your family and children, but it doesn't mean that you gave up or that you gave up on your partner. Instead, it means that you had to hold yourself. You can't hold the relationship or be the support by yourself anymore. If any of this video has resonated for you today, feel free to share it with your partner, friends, family, or give me a comment. Let me know what about this video resonated for you. And if we can support you further, please look in the description where we offer support and articles and other videos that can help guide you, or sign up for a couples consultation where we can talk about this directly with either myself or somebody on my team. You shouldn't be doing this alone anymore. It's time that you had support.